Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to St. Mary here where I work. And I want to teach a lesson today. I'm going to do this for all grades today. And it's because we're going to concentrate on one type of instrument that many churches hear and have, and that is bells. And I know for a fact that the churches that we have bells, we have a bell here at St. Mary. And we have a bell. I know you have bells at St. Paul. I know you also have bells at Christ the King, too. And I mean real bells, the kind of bells that you hear where somebody has to pull the bell and hear it go. So, everybody, I want you to imagine this, that pretend you lived 100 years ago and that there are no airplanes that you hear in the sky, no cars. And if you can imagine it being very quiet. And Sunday morning, you hear the bell go off at church. Now remember, buildings are lower at that time too. We don't have skyscrapers, and we have lower things. So that usually the tallest building would have been the steeple at the church, and the bell would have been way up at the steeple. So a town would have heard that bell from way off in the distance. And it was a cue for everybody to say, oh, it's getting close to church. And it's time to go to church. So people would start coming in. As they walked to church, they would hear this bell. And the bell always told them where the church steeple was. Of course, nowadays with airplanes and cars and everything, they still play the bells, but it's kind of hard to hear where exactly the bell's coming from. So I want to show you today a handbell, which many of you have seen and some of you have played. Now this is a little bit different than the church bell that you hear. A lot of the church bells that are there have ropes that come down, and you have to pull the rope to ring it. Well, this bell's a little bit different. As you can see, I'm going to play it for you right now. Some of you who have bells at home, notice that you have bells that, you can ring like this. And any way you ring it, it'll ring. But this one doesn't do that, because if I go like this, it won't ring, because this is called a handbell. And handbells only go one direction. So you can control the handbell and play it. So let me play a little bit of it for you. And to make it quiet, you would put it up against you and make it soft and make it quiet. And it's a very awesome instrument to play. And there's a lot of groups in churches that have handbell groups. And one group that I want you to look up on the internet, this group's called the Raleigh Ringers from Virginia. And they are a professional handbell group. And they have some great things. So I want you to look them up and listen to one of their pieces. I even think they have The Flight of the Bumblebee for bells too. So that's pretty awesome to do that. So we're going to today look at some of the history and some of the workings of a bell. Now, in the old days, and actually even today, you will hear big churches with lots of bells play at different times of the day. Sometimes they would play, and it would be called the Angelus. That would be at noon, and they would play a certain way, and they would play what would they call a bell matrix, and a bell matrix. Hold on. A bell matrix are numbers. Like this. All right, so they would make up numbers and have different combinations of bells. Like this bell here would be 1. It happens to be an F, but I'm going to play number 1. And bell number 1 would play at that instant. So let's see. Let's think of piano again. F, G, A. So what would be bell number 3 would be A, 1, F, G, A. Here's bell number 3. And then bell number 2 would be what note? Can you guess? Or can you tell me? It would be a F, G. And then the 5 bell, which would be C, but this is C below. Some of you know this already. It sounds like a clock, doesn't it? This is called the Westminster chime. A lot of you have this in your house. Like if you have a grandfather clock or a thing, it's called Westminster. Chime. And this would tell you what time it was. Before people had, like wristwatches to tell what time it was. And they could tell what time it was by listening to whatever clock or steeple was around. So let me play this for you. So this would be this would be of the Westminster chime matrix. Whoops. Let me get this. Get a little more closer to me. Okay. Okay, the next one. All right, every time you heard one line, it would be a quarter after the hour. And then, so say it was, whatever the hour was, it would be like 15, 30, 45, and then the hour, 60. All right, so, and then if you got to the hour, it would stop, and then it would play whatever hour it was. So everybody, if I played this, it would be half after the hour if I stopped there. Or if I continued, and then, what time is it now? It would be some hour. Actually, all four would play at that time. And it told me it was 3 o'clock, because that's how many times I rang it. So there's different kinds of matrices. Now, some of you know that Big Ben, the big bell in the House of Parliament, this is what the Westminster is. And the area where Big Ben is located is called Westminster. And that's why they call it Westminster chime. So Big Ben, which is the biggest bell in the bell tower that you see in England, in London, is the biggest bell up there. And that's what this one would play. But this is just one matrix. There are matrices for all kinds of events. What could be a church event that you could have a bell matrix that would play that people would recognize? Well, what's one church event? Of course, we could have service or mass. We could have a wedding. We could have a funeral. We could have all kinds of different events. A dignitary that's coming into town would have played a matrix that everybody would recognize as somebody important coming to town. Or there's also one where you could do that's emergency, that even today you can use as an emergency. Here at St. Mary, where I am, there is a bell, like I told you before, that's located in the belfry in this church. And I would take students up there to ring the bell with the rope. And it was all great fun. It's really fun to do. But almost all the time, when I went up there and they rang the bell, somebody from the area would call in and say, "Is everything okay? Is everything..." Because people have a way of hearing a bell that's not quite, supposed to be at this time. They say, "Okay, something's happening, so should I call in?" And no, it was just my students up there playing the bell. So bells have been important for a long time. And people used to have songs that would say about certain churches. And what was going to happen. So one of this song here is called Oranges and Lemons. And I'm going to sing it for you, and it sounds like this. Oranges and lemons, say the bells of St. Clement's. You owe me 5 farthings, say the bells of St. Martin's. When will you pay me, say the bells of Old Bailey. When I get rich, say the bells of Shoreditch. When will that be, say the bells of Stepney. I do not know, say the great bells of Bow. So even in songs like that, they would say, okay, how bells were important to people way back then. Sing after me. I'm going to sing it one more time, and just sing it back to me. Oranges and lemons, say the bells of St. Clement's. Sing it with me. Oranges and lemons, say the bells of St. Clement's. You owe me 5 farthings, say the bells of St. Martin's. Together. You owe me 5 farthings, say the bells of St. Martin's. When will you pay me, say the bells of Old Bailey. Sing it. When will you pay me, say the bells of Old Bailey. When I get rich, say the bells of Shoreditch. Say together. When will I get rich, say the bells of Shoreditch. When will that be, say the bells of Stepney. When will that be, say the bells of Stepney. I do not know, say the great bells of Bow. I do not know, say the great bells of Bow. And they used to have people who used to go around the different town and called a town crier. And if there was news, a lot of time way back when people didn't read and they didn't know what the news was of a particular time. So there used to be what we called a bell ringer or a town crier who would go ring the bell, and people would gather in the marketplace and they would tell the news of whatever's going on at that time. So there's so many interesting, fun things about bells. Now, I'm going to show you something before we go today. I'm going to show you. This is of course, there's a lot bigger bells than this. This is kind of like a medium big bell. It's a C note. And this was, let me play it for you. Now, the metal that's on that is 70% bronze and 70% brass and 20% tin, which would make it bronze. And this is a beautiful tone. And the mallet hits it right at a certain spot called the sweet spot. Now, there's different techniques that you can use. This is called the tower swing, like if you're in a church tower, listen. It alters the pitch a little bit, doesn't it? There's also the tremolo. Watch. And this is a bigger bell too, so I'm going to show you something. Bells have something what's called overtones, and those are pitches that are above the foundation. So the main note here is C, but there's other notes you hear in it too. So I'm going to show you, have you listen to one of the overtones of this bell. This is what makes a bell a bell. Watch. You hear that high pitch? That's a high pitch. That's called the overtone. That, when I play the bell, you hear that, but by separating, by dampening like this, you can hear the overtone. So that's pretty cool about this. Anyways, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed the presentation of the bells today. And if you have any questions, just email me at St. Paul's or at home, and that's more than welcome. I'm more than welcome, happy to answer you. And I want you all to have a great day, and I'll see you soon again. Thank you. Okay.